FDIC Quentin Whitwell, chairman of the board and co-owner of Panola Medical Center, and that's not the only one, I don't think. Good morning, sir. How are you? It's good to have you.
Paul,
I hadn't seen you in a while.
You in the studio. I know.
Man, it is so much to talk about. First of all, I think first and foremost is where you guys are now, in how many places?
Well, we are managing or owning 7, and we have 3 under letter of intent right now for acquisition, and recently put a bid out for another. So we're growing pretty fast. Yes, sir.
Now, would you guys be available for some of those dollars? As far as are you taking advantage of some of those dollars that were put out by the 2023 legislative session?
Well, unfortunately, most of those dollars did not trickle down to the hospitals in actuality because of the formula tying it to the ARPA funds as opposed to the general budget. Most all hospitals had already been reimbursed from the feds on COVID, and you could only apply for what you hadn't been reimbursed for. So at Panola, we were eligible for $2.1 million. Potentially, we got $126,000.
I don't know why we can't get a straight answer on this one, because it is just amazing. So the great bulk of that $200 million is still unused, as far as you know.
Yes, sir. I know that the State Department of Health is doing the very best they can to push out as much money to the hospitals as they're eligible for. And I am hopeful and optimistic that the legislature coming forward is going to make sure that the funds that were intended to go to the hospitals actually get there.
Now, Quentin, you're a smart guy. You read over this thing more than once, I'm sure, the governor's proposal. Give me your overview of that.
Well, Paul, as I have told you many times, if we were in any industry in America right now and said, hey, like let's just say we're the oil and gas industry, and we said, hey, we'll put up our share on the tax if we can get a hold of these dollars over here, no one would argue with us about it. So for some reason, there's this healthcare issue that has really got a roadblock in people's minds, and I want to be a part of the solution for fixing that issue, because the people like me that are in healthcare are doing it because we love people, we love to serve communities. In rural environments, if you don't have a decent school system, some sort of banking, financial institution, and a hospital, you're not growing, you're dying. And so that's what we're trying to solve. So as I look at what the governor's done, I think a lot of it ties to what a lot of people have suggested that are, friends of his like myself, saying, hey, let the formula be enhanced so that people in the healthcare industry are paying for it and take advantage of the federal dollars that are available. I think Louisiana has done this. I think Arkansas has done this. And for Panola specifically, based on what you're looking at there, that'd be an additional $5 million a year, which would be tremendously helpful when we have the ebb and flows of things like, our geri-psych unit, which right now post the COVID, geri-psych units are struggling and people are losing them.
Yeah, I don't want to get in the weeds with this because it's all mathematics and it's not good for radio. But basically what you're saying is tweak the formula. Tweak the formula is a lot better than going on and just saying blanket-wise, expand Medicaid, because you achieve the same thing at the end, or what? As far as helping the hospitals.
Well, look, I support Medicaid expansion, but I'm also a big supporter of our governor, and so that puts me in a predicament there. But we all can have positive dialogue with each other, and in what I see is, yes, I think this is a very good step forward. I think it's going to help a lot of these hospitals like my own that have, even with all the innovative things we've done and the positive things we've done, we still struggle. And people need to understand that. I put on a great face because I love what I do and I'm good at it. But it doesn't mean that we don't go through all the same things everybody else. We just hopefully do it a little better
Yeah.
with understanding of the tools that are available to us and with
But
strong
but you're an
leadership and a
entrepreneur.
good culture.
Here's what people are asking, and again, Quentin Whitwell is my guest. You're an entrepreneur. You're not in a nonprofit. You're out there to make a profit one way or the other, or you wouldn't put all this together. I mean, you said basically you have 7 hospitals now and have acquisition for at least a couple more. And I would guess you didn't want to stop there. You want to continue. So you must find a formula where this is profitable one way or the other, and you can at least make a profit and do good works at the same time. So what are you doing? Well, what are you doing that Greenwood couldn't do?
So, here's the thing. The state has not offered the types of tools that it needs to, and I'm glad to see the governor starting to do that. I'm a lawyer and an entrepreneur. I know the rules, I know the regs, I know what the Federal Register says, and basically what I have told people in speeches all over the country is I don't think the federal government tried to kill rural hospitals, but they did a pretty darn good job of it, and then they threw a few bones along the way. And essentially what I call it is the Hansel and Gretel approach. If you follow the breadcrumbs, you'll eventually get back home. And we take advantage of the tools that are out there appropriately for, provider-based rural health clinics, your chronic care management, your remote patient monitoring, your 340B program. We look at every single tool that's available and how it can benefit a rural hospital, and we do it to stack everything up to make it work.
Yeah.
There still are so many issues though with insurance companies, denying claims, all the pre-authorizations that are required now, as if a hospital is going to, set a surgery for a person that doesn't need it. It's actually treating us like toddlers. And insurance companies are benefiting by hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that should be going back into the system for the hospital.
Yeah.
So there are still issues that need to be addressed, but yeah, we're pretty darn good at it. And we also are taking advantage of this brand new rural emergency hospital model that I believe we have created a very robust apparatus. And we've had meetings with Health and Human Services, with CMS, with National Rural Health Association, big leaders who have been very impressed by what we've accomplished.
With the advent of passing of the law in the last legislative session where it enabled you guys to work together with other entities, have you been able to do that? Maybe combine your forces in one way or the other where you're not breaking any state laws now?
We have not utilized that specific law. There are other laws out there. There's a federal law called the Rural Health Network. There's also things such as affiliation agreements and other things that we have looked at. I can say this, as far as, I have counterparts at Baptist and Methodist that I speak to on occasion, but North Mississippi Medical Center has been a very good, strong partner to us. And I'm very thankful to Shane Spees and his team for the leadership that they provide. And we have transfer agreements and other things in the works with them, and they have been a great partner to work with.
Do you have a team? Let's just say you're going to go to another location. I'll ask you this when we come back. You're going to go to another location. You're going to look. You're going to evaluate this hospital in this particular rural area for acquisition or possible acquisition. Do you have a team that goes and does an evaluation of that? I'm sure as a lawyer you're part of it, and how do you do that? And my other question is going to be, in any of the establishments that you have now under your purview and ownership in this group, did you have to downsize services and make some tough choices to cut before you were able to at least show a little bit of a profit? We'll ask those. Do you send a team out to evaluate? How do you do that?
Well, Paul, I do have a team. I have some good people that work with me and around me, and I also like to find good talent in the walls of the buildings that we go into. But I will say, for all my weaknesses combined with maybe a few strengths, one of my best is probably the evaluation process of these hospitals. I get the overall picture and the vision early. When I first walked into the hospital we're now managing in Georgia, The director of nursing told me that in 30 minutes of visiting with her, I had given her more information than the previous management group had given her in 4 years. So we have taken that hospital, which was set to close, and now it's very successful. So those are the things we do. And kind of leading into your other question about cutting services, I compare it to pruning a tree. You do have to prune the tree a lot of times before you can start to flourish. So yes, because a lot of times you got over your skis doing more services than you need to do, and not realizing how much money you're losing per department. And until you can get to scale and get it where it needs to be, then you can start coming back with added services. And we're very good at working with doctors and
Yeah.
providers and other
All
healthcare
right.
sectors to do things like that.
Therein lies the entire angst that I have, and I think it's mirrored to a lot of people in this audience across the state. Because I don't think it's been done because of politics in a lot of different areas. We don't want to close our hospital. This shows that it's a failure for our city. It's almost like a chamber of commerce. Schools and hospitals are the two things that generate money and prestige for and a lot of times they're more of laboratories for hiring and employment, like factories, than they are the end user, the students or the patients. I hate to say that, but in a politician's mind that happens. So before we talked about spending another $200, $300, or $400 million out of the state kitty for Medicaid expansion, and before we start talking about anything else for these hospitals, many of them, do you think, have gone through that process of pruning the dead limbs?
Well, I can't speak for every hospital operator. I certainly know there are some good ones in the state. I have a lot of friends in this industry, but I know this. First of all, I just want to make sure that the misinformation is not out there. I mean, this is a design plan for the hospitals themselves to put in more tax to receive federal dollars. It's not out of the state kitty. That's number
Right.
one. Number two, we do need a master plan. I have been begging, especially in the Mississippi Delta, I have been begging for a master plan. Dr. Edney and I have spoken about this. He agrees. I mean, if we don't know what Greenville and Clarksdale are going to do, then how am I supposed to know what I should be doing in Marks, or how is Greenwood supposed to know what they're going to be
Very good point.
capable of moving
Yeah.
forward? We need to authorize a birthing center in the Delta. Right now, we've only got 2 locations where you can deliver babies in the entire Delta, just about. I mean, or at least the northern region. So, I mean, there are some out of the box things that do need to be done, and it's going to require state cooperation. And I do hope that our legislature, and I believe under the leadership of Jason White, moving forward, that they get what needs to be looked at. I'm very proud of what the lieutenant governor has done over his tenure, and looking and
Yeah.
talking to a number of people to get input, and that's what we need.
That's why the problems are not all the same. You got so many different equations that fit into that. For instance, you just mentioned one: the distance from a major hospital where you have to have the services in this area. That's why. And I don't know why it's so surprising to some people that rural hospitals are having a problem. It's part of the marketplace. I mean, look how many businesses from Bed Bath and Beyond in other sectors have had to shut down and readjust because of the marketplace changing. So it's a lot of things happening out there, and you have to stay on top of it.
It's
Go
even
ahead.
greater than the marketplace. You make a great point with the marketplace, but here's the other thing. We were talking earlier about the federal, influence, both positive and negative. But the negative side of it is that a lot of the policies that have been created over the last 20 or 30 years have been designed to make sure that the inpatients go to the bigger facilities, that you stay in a hospital that's bigger and allegedly better. But a lot of times that's not true. the types of patients that are needed to stay in the rural hospitals actually might get better nursing treatment if they have a lower acuity level of sickness. So, but that's just a fact of the world now. So this new rural emergency hospital model encourages hospitals to work on the outpatient side and not deal with the inpatient side. And unfortunately, that's where we're headed anyway.
What did COVID do to the entire structure?
Oh my goodness. First of all, just if you see a healthcare worker, please encourage them. People, they're beat down. They're still beat down. From an infrastructure standpoint, I think the big boys, the insurance companies, the pharmacies, the big pharma. I mean, the big conglomerates out there, they are bigger and better than ever for themselves. It hurt the actual hospital industry with labor costs, with exorbitant charges for gowns and supplies and inventory and drugs. And we got a shot in the arm, and then we got completely abandoned. And it's time for people just to look holistically at what we're doing and to value what we're doing. And I promise you this, from my standpoint, I'm always here to help and be at the table to participate in the positive components of a conversation.
Are you more positive about maybe putting something together? And I like what you said about the plan, because across the state, it's not indigenous of the entire state. There are problems with hospitals across the state, and some of them have a common problem, but some of them are unique to that area. Whether it's in the administration part of it, the services that are needed for that area. So it just seems like a statewide plan is something that we ought to have.
Even if it's just a committee of some sort of a multiple group of people. I know that some of the people that stood behind the governor for his latest press release are, that's a good start. There's a lot of good quality people there. But we need to definitely do something formal.
Well, let me ask you one more thing. This is on the business side of that. In any given hospital that you have now, is there a portion of that hospital that is not being used?
100%, and that's one thing that we're addressing.
Is there a service? Is there a service? I'm pushing you here because we have limited time. Is there a service that you would like to have, but you cannot afford putting it in that vacant area?
Well, look, I'm going to hire you, Paul. We are looking at working with national vendors so that we don't have to afford it, that they come in for us and work with us.
Okay, so in other words, you're renting space to them, whether it's diagnostic or whatever it happens to be, as an addition to make you a medical center there with other people. So isn't that a form of a bridging CON right there? And if we didn't have CON, you guys could work together better?
So I'll call it a CON. I don't like to use the word con because I thought you were saying we were.
I don't know. For the patients out there, I think con's a pretty good word.
So let me just say this: there are issues with certificates of need for sure. You bring up a good point. Anything over a certain dollar amount, you have to do a certificate of need. Look, if we're going to bring in a valued service, like a cath lab or a physical therapy unit or a radiology department, that shouldn't require CON. You are correct. And also there's some loosening of the mental health laws that need to be done as well.
If it's not in your community and it would aid the community, it seems like a CON. They ought to take all three of those letters and toss them out the window. Quentin, it's always a pleasure, sir. Don't be a stranger. Thank you so very much. Anytime you want back on, give us a call. You got it, man. Quentin Whitwell, who's chairman of the board and co-owner of Panola Medical Center. We've